Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another turbo diesel swap episode. We are removing the TDI from the 81 Westphalia. Well, actually, we already did.
So before you guys say, Tin Cup, stop buying vans, you have a problem, you need to speak to somebody, I bought another van. This one was a good friend of mine's van who had just finished restoring the entire thing, taking it on a bunch of trips, and then tragically, it all caught on fire. Luckily, they had an XL blaze cut fire suppression system on board, along with 2 fire extinguishers. They really minimized the damage the van got. So after the insurance company had its way with her, I picked it up from an insurance auction and we started rebuilding.
I got a new rear hatch. Still trying to get the hinges lined up because I think the old ones got all bent up. So got some new ones on the way that'll seal that up. I got most of the burned up debris out from the inside, so the inside is pretty cleaned up. I miss a window here still, but the smell is almost gone. I'm still gonna tear out everything out of the interior and clean it, disinfect it, and then come back to this floor here and just sand it down with like a wire wheel and get it bare metal, repaint it, go from there. Starting to work on the engine bay. Pretty much have to tear absolutely everything out of the engine bay, sandblast every square inch, and then paint again. Most of the heat was contained to underneath the firewall, the deck lid, and that held it back pretty darn good. Anything structural is pretty far away and really doesn't show too much sign of fire damage. Like here, that's original gold paint still on there. So I really think it's okay. Just needs a good sandblast and clean up. I was able to get everything stripped off the motor and the transmission. Pretty extensive fire damage, but it looks all right. So now I'm going to try and drop the motor, pull the transmission out with it, and start prepping all this for sandblasting. Quick little test of my sandblaster. That was about, I don't know, 30 seconds of it. Pretty accessible spot, so definitely works. It's just one of these dinky little 20-pound Harbor Freight blasters that I found on Craigslist. Pulled the motor out of the Vanagon today. Since this was Tyco swapped, it's pretty similar to the 1.6 diesels that originally came in the Vanagons, and it makes it pretty easy to remove. First thing I did, put a jack under the motor, remove the 2 motor mounts on either side, lower the motor down, pivoting on that transmission mount back there, and then move the jack, take the transmission mount out, and then the transmission's on the ground. Got the rear bench all out. Got this side panel off. Also cleared out all the insulation that was shoved in there. It was all just fiberglass. So fiberglass insulation, not the best thing to use in a car. Got all the sound deadening off the back. Where it was burned up, it definitely came off a lot easier. Kind of gets brittle when it's really hot. The rest of it, I used this oscillating saw to just peel it up. And then once it's peeled up like that, come through with the angle grinder and you can get it pretty darn clean. I just ground it down so it's pretty bare metal. Wasn't really worried about getting every single piece off. This is just getting covered by paint and then getting covered by insulation again. So it doesn't really matter, to me at least. I got all the rust off, and now I'm just gonna prime and paint it. I ended up just using some real thick Rust-Oleum brush-on paint and paint and primer. This stuff is really thick. Once this stuff dries, I'm gonna come back and put this rattle trap sound deadening around the entire firewall. That just keeps down vibration and noise. And obviously the previous owner really liked this stuff. I found some 2-part epoxy bed liner that I'm going to spray over
pretty much everything. I'm going to take those trailing arms out, and pretty much everything I don't want paint on I'm going to remove, and then just start spraying. I'm going to refill this with wool or like a denim insulation, and then put plastic sheeting on it, and then reinstall the panels. I'm going to repaint them as well. It's another day working on the van. Today I spent the day stripping everything off the rear half of the van. Got the rear suspension out. Tried to get the rear control arms out, but all the bolts are very seized up. Probably gonna have to get cut out, and the bushings will have to get cut out as well. So I think I'm gonna save that for another day. But got the engine bay stripped down, all the extra stuff out of it, and I started just hitting it with the grinder wheel, and it looks pretty good. So I'm gonna give it a quick coat of primer just to keep moisture off of it. Right now what I'm doing is just going through and getting all the big chunks of junk off. So I got under here a little bit too. There is a lot of just heavy debris that the wire wheel takes off very nicely. Doesn't clog up, it just breaks it off. And 4:30 in the afternoon, just finished spraying the undercoating. I got the primer on earlier in the day, let it get tacky, and then I sprayed a coat of the undercoat, and then I did another coat. It's doesn't look quite as textured in person, I think just because the light's bouncing off of it, but we got every square inch of this thing sprayed. And it looks great. I'm really happy with how it came out. So now engine bay is all done. Interior is done being painted. So now it's time for reassembly. I started putting in some new denim insulation. I'm gonna finish that around and then plastic seal it off, put the trim back in, finish the interior, and then it's just the motor. Out in the van again today, working on the interior. Going to try and get the walls insulated and then sealed off with some plastic. I'm trying to get the interior buttoned up so it'll start looking a little bit more like a van, and my wife won't be angry at me for buying it anymore. Right now we're putting in some of this denim insulation. It's non-toxic. From what I understand, it's just ground up denim recycled from jeans. So I'll use that. It comes in pretty small pieces, 16 inch by 48, but it covers the walls pretty good. And I use this 3M spray glue to stick it up there. So making good progress on the driver's side. Got the entire wall insulated, and now I'm coming back with some mass loaded vinyl. It's a really dense, rubbery mat that just absorbs sound and road noise. So putting that behind the table bracket and trying to keep it as flush with the wall as possible, leaving room for the insulation to kind of expand. But that's just to keep down on road noise and any other noise that you can hear when you're camping. Here we are putting in a vapor barrier for the bus. I got my assistant here picking up all the trash. Here are the back trailing arms off the Vanagon. Original drum brakes, a little bit of rust, and the spring perches are pretty well rusted out. So quick tip on removing the rear bushings and the trailing arms. Drill a bunch of holes around the perimeter. The more the merrier. This stuff drills really easily. And then whack it with a hammer. And that's it for this episode. If you guys want to see the rebuild of the trailing arms, click on the link here. Next episode, I will be going over the wiring harness for the TDI, along with minimizing any extra junk that it's on the motor right now and getting it ready to go in the van. I'll also be getting the transmission ready for the TDI, swapping the bell housings, repainting, and just restoring it from the fire. And then after that, I'll be putting both motor and transmission in the van.